Hello and welcome to Up to Speed StarCraft, the story so far, Heart of the Swarm Special Edition. So excited to be here to relive the journey, the phenomenal journey of what was the single-player campaign for StarCraft 2, Heart of the Swarm. Joining me on set to recount this journey as well is the very lovely Lauren Elise. Lauren.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Super excited to be back. Thank you again for having me. And I just want all of you to know that I'm going to be here with you in chat, giving questions that you have to Clutch so that we can have some good communication going on. And I also want you to know that I'm on this journey with you, that I have not I don't even know the entire story so far.
She's heard us talk about it, but she's...
all of it.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to know what's happened, if I missed anything, because I know that there's some subtle lines that maybe you kind of have to be looking out for. So I'm going to really try to sneak in and get those from you.
Well, we'll have a lot of answers to these questions. But you've been playing a lot of multiplayer, to your credit, and you've been doing very well in that department. Go Terrans. Joining us as well from the beautiful state of Arizona is Kevin Sixen Carlino. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited. I had a ton of fun in the first episode. I can't wait to talk more about StarCraft lore. Like I said, I don't get nearly enough of a chance to do this. So why don't we jump into it, Clutch?
Let's jump into it. Quick review of what we talked about in the last episode. We went all the way to the Old Testament times, if you will, of the lore of StarCraft, its history, the different races, and what the stakes were for each of these different factions that existed in the Koprulu sector. Going back and talking about the Xel'Naga, if you read the old novels or even the game instruction book for the original StarCraft, this was a race that is mysterious, ancient, powerful, and highly intelligent. And it seemed through more information that was revealed through novels and even Wings of Liberty that they had their offspring or their next generation, the Xel'Naga, created through elevating other races, and some believe by combining those races. And two of those races they elevated were first the Protoss and then the Zerg. Kevin, I'll let you take it over for those two races.
Yes, sir. Just a nice little refresher here again. The Protoss and the Zerg did both exist before the Xel'Naga came around. You can think of it kind of as just like a little bug species were the Zerg, and these kind of, I don't know, smart little weird animal guys as the Protoss, and they were kind of just hanging around again until the Xel'Naga came in, and Xel'Naga uplifted or helped them uprise, and it essentially made these races smarter. It allowed them to very quickly expand and grow as an entire race and species, and then kind of gave us as to what we know as the Protoss and the Zerg. So again, they both existed prior to the Xel'Naga. Xel'Naga just made them what they are today much quicker than they would have been.
Exactly, and there's another race, the best race that I think, that I play on multiplayer is the Terrans. The Terrans do originally come from Earth, and they were a groove of political dissidents and prisoners and pretty much the unsavory folks that they launched into space on a couple different cruisers. They had a malfunction, they crashed in the Koprulu sector, and therefore created this Terran organization. And through different political strifes and warfare, you now have the Terran Dominion. Now, one of the people that was involved with the Terran Dominion and also with Earth when they visited the Koprulu sector back in Brood War is a man named Samir Duran, who a lot of people have been mentioning his name over and over again for the last 15 years, ever since Brood War first came out. And we definitely have some questions that are answered in Heart of the Swarm about that individual. Also to highlight the novel Flashpoint. This novel takes place right between Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. From the moment Jim has Sarah Kerrigan in his arms to the moment that we see Sarah Kerrigan in the Emotion compound. Now what happens in those moments, in those about 3 months' time, is very, very key and important to understanding the attitude that Sarah has at the beginning of the game. They don't know who Sarah is. They don't know what her powers are. She is still trying to figure out what she can do and who and what she can control. Now, Sarah is a very, very powerful individual. She has a psi level of over 10, of 12 that it comes on the indicator when you play in Wings of Liberty, and she has always been used as a weapon. And because of that, she is hesitant to be used by anyone because of all the things that she has gone through, be it in the Ghost program, be it transformed into a Zerg after the betrayal of Arcturus Mengsk. She wants peace, but she will never have that peace so long as Mengsk lives. And Sarah Kerrigan, with the attitude she has in Heart of the Swarm, this is Act 1 of this game. We see this struggle between her and Jim Raynor. We see this brooding that Sarah Kerrigan has, thinking about vengeance she wants to take up against Mengsk. And a very, very poignant part of the game is when Jim is telling Sarah, I moved heaven and earth to bring you back. Don't give up on us. And it's incredible to think the amount of power that she had as the Queen of Blades and how that's stripped from her, Sixen, and how she's trying to gain that power back. Or at least, if you can imagine being almost a god and now next to a mere mortal to deal with that kind of power that's taken from you, you know? How would you react in that situation?
No, I mean, it's definitely crazy. Like you just said, think you have everything and now all of a sudden you're back to nothing. It's crazy, and that's actually how this game begins. And well, I'll let you go ahead and touch it, but yes, Kerrigan, it's terrible.
You know, it is. She is a troubled individual, but she does deserve happiness. Everyone does. This moment in the beginning of the game was so crucial, though, to highlight the relationship between her and Jim Raynor, and this is the kiss. Finally, in the video game itself, we have an established visual of these two people. Sixen, you and I were at the Heart of the Swarm launch event, and the most enthusiastic time the crowd ever got during that entire event was when they showed that clip during interviews of the different voice actors. I don't think I've ever heard a louder crowd for a game launch when they saw them kiss. And it seems like such a small thing, such a little thing. But it's those impactful moments that we can really connect on a human level, emotionally, with these characters, that therefore makes the stakes way higher when we see them in trouble, when we see all these explosions and all this warfare. Sarah,
it was 15 years coming, Clutch.
Exactly.
It was 15 years coming.
Exactly. And it was outside of the books.
You know? I'm so glad that you freeze-framed that moment.
I know. It's a Kodak moment. You got to put that up on your fridge.
The eyes are closed.
It was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Well, they're under attack, too, and he gives her the rifle, and he says, it's...
Yeah. No, I saw that.
Yeah.
My first kiss was not like that. So it is definitely way better in the movies. It was like so. I was just like, oh, I want that in my life. That's what makes watching these storylines so intriguing, because it's really like a movie.
It is, and it makes things way more dramatic, maybe at times, but it also, because of what's at stake with them at that moment, they're under attack. He hands him the rifle. She gets the rifle from Jim. And he's telling her, kind of like riding a bike. And she's like, yep, like riding a bike. And she goes to kiss him. There's a little bit of an innuendo there for you people that can handle that. But it was the viewpoint of these characters that we really hadn't gotten to see that because they've been torn apart for so long. So it was beautiful to have that from Blizzard. And, Sarah recognizing what Jim has done for her is such a key moment in that time, because it translates later and later into the game. Sixen, there's another individual that's at the Emotion compound, and this guy is a bro. He really is. If you read Flashpoint, you find out how good of a guy he is, and that he is an ally of Jim. It is established, and his name is Valerian. Why don't you tell us about this guy?
Again, Valerian Mengsk, very, very articulated. He always makes sure he has some kind of strategic plan in place prior to going through with it. So again, the game starts off with Valerian actually running tests on Kerrigan, which was really, really interesting. And she kind of breaks out, of course, which is not that good. But again, Valerian, who seemed to have some kind of plan in place, making sure he's doing tests on Kerrigan, trying to help better understand the Zerg. And it's a great starting point for, again, Heart of the Swarm.
Valerian also does hold his ground against Sarah with his reasoning and trying to protect his people and being a little bit, Sarah, you just destroyed all of these facility components that maybe could have been used in the defense of my facility, but she was trying to prove a point, and Valerian respected that. Valerian respects Sarah, and that is very, very key as well. He respects the power she has, and he does really want to help her. And he wants to help his empire.
I almost want to say he's kind of like, the devil and the god, on her shoulders, right? He's kind of both sides of that. So he understands that bad things have to happen, but at the same time, he's also trying to speak to her more human side. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
I was really grateful from Blizzard as well, writing this character, that he wasn't complaining like, oh, you destroyed all my toys. He was like, I understand your point, Sarah. You made your point very well. Thank you. Now let's get you out of here because we're under attack. And
he's
it's
a leader.
Not, exactly, he's a leader, and he understands the crucial points in different moments, especially when you're under attack. Now this escalates very, very quickly, and I'm glad that they don't drag it on, because the Dominion finds where they're at. They've been looking for them all through the Flashpoint novel, and now they finally pinpointed them at the Emotion compound. They invade, in a beautiful shot of the guns shooting up into space, into the atmosphere, and you see the different battle cruisers come down through the darkness. And Nova shows up of all people, which we did see in the trailer. And now a very, very intriguing thing happens. And this is regarding the choices that you make in Wings of Liberty, which the writer said the choices that you make will affect here and there what happens in Heart of the Swarm. Now, in Wings of Liberty, I chose to help Tosh rather than to help Nova. When Nova shows up, when Jim is pinned, Nova tells Jim, if you would have helped me with my Tosh problem, I might have looked the other way. And Jim's like, all right, darling. Or he says, all right, Blondie, take your best shot. And she does. And I wonder if it would have been a different set of dialogue if you did help Nova. Kevin, did you help Nova in Wings of Liberty?
I actually did. I don't remember exactly what you said word for word, but I'm 99% sure that it wasn't that. So I'm pretty sure that this, there are those subtle differences in the choices, and we can definitely touch on this again once we get to the second choice, because that one I'm positive of that was different. So again, I'm going to go on a limb and say 99% sure that's the case, which is really cool.
It's subtle, but it was cool. Now we come to the catalyst of the story. What really changes everything about Sarah, about Jim, and really the Koprulu sector? And that is the kidnapping of Jim Raynor and then the announcement of his execution. And us as an audience, we think, well, he really can't be dead. But putting yourself in the shoes of Sarah Kerrigan, the only thing that she had, that she cared for, the bridge she had to her humanity, to her past, something worth fighting for, something worth dying for, is now gone forever. There is nothing left of her to really give up, to really connect herself to doing the right thing, other than Jim's persuasion, Jim's love, Jim's patience. He was her biggest advocate, especially by the end of Flashpoint, when, unfortunately, one of Jim's crew was killed through Sarah's power. It was accidental. She was trying to free them from the compound that Dr. Narud had placed them in, and it put everybody on edge because of it. Now, with no connection to humanity anymore, and the only thing she has to live now is for vengeance. Hashtag vengeance. This is the big vengeance campaign from Blizzard before the release of Heart of the Swarm. Now, in order to enact her vengeance, she can't do it alone. And Manx, with all his conniving and cunning and 16 steps ahead of everyone else, could probably see her coming. She needs an army. She needs a swarm. And that is her solution, and that's where we really get into the Heart of the Swarm, why she goes back to the Zerg and tries to unlock all the power that she once had. It's quite a frightening thought to have, Sixen, if you lose everything, and the only thing you have to hold on to is the vengeance you want to enact through any way possible.
Means necessary.
Yeah, any means necessary, any way possible, stripping your humanity. It's a scary thought, man.
It's brutal.
But that's where this story takes us, and that's the half of Act 1 for you, if you will. But tell us a little bit about the Swarm. But in fact, actually, before you do that, I want to make a quick little comment that some of these new characters they introduced were phenomenal. People love these new characters. They love the voices to these new characters. Now, one of those new characters' name is Abathor, and I happen to do a little bit of an impression of Abathor. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is how you do voiceover work. Not bad. Not bad.
Clutch.
Not
I
bad.
love it.
But Abathor is one of my favorite new characters in Heart of the Swarm. Kevin, I'll let you talk about him.
Abathor, very, very interesting character. And actually, the next couple of characters we're going to talk about, they're all unique. So again, they're one of a kind for the Zerg. Abathor, first one. Like I said, very interesting character. He's actually created by the Overmind. Once Kerrigan was de-infested, he was running rampant himself. He was lost, wasn't sure what to do. Kerrigan picked him back up once she became the Queen of Blades again. And now I do want to point this out. He is obsessed with efficiency. His job is definitely just to, well, spin DNA sequences, essences. We're going to get to essences in just a bit. But again, he's obsessed with efficiency. He's a very unique character. And I also want to mention, because this is somewhat important, the Zerg, they're similar to the Primal Zerg in the fact that they all try to, again, get this essence. That I'm just going to leave it at that for now. We're going to get into the next character, Isha. Isha, Amanda Haley. She was an infested medic from the Terran, obviously. Very straightforward character, although the two of them are supposed to be kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Abathur is supposed to be this very straightforward. He doesn't really care for what you have to think of. Again, so he's supposed to be the evil side, whereas Isha is supposed to be the good side, and the two of them are supposed to butt heads. So again, they're just supposed to represent opposite ends of the spectrum, good and evil, at least in terms of the Zerg. So again, Amanda Haley, she's a medic. What she does is she actually remembers Kerrigan's memories. So she's kind of like a memoir of the Zerg, or the old Zerg, if you will. Third character is Zagara. Zagara, once Kerrigan became de-infested, she actually decided she was going to take it upon herself to take over the swarm and reinvent the swarm, rebirth the swarm, rather, in her own light. And of course, once Kerrigan comes back, we kind of find out what happens. Kerrigan is obviously not too happy about that, so they go to Char, and Kerrigan kind of tells her what's up. Basically, Kerrigan tells her she has a lack of vision, and she keeps putting emphasis on this vision. So Zagara decides she's going to take a step back, just let Kerrigan run things for now. She's kind of still in the back of her head also planning on taking over the swarm from Kerrigan by either force or just by having it handed down after being groomed to become the new Queen of Blades. Very interesting stuff. Zagara is a queen. I do want to mention that. Otherwise, they're all unique characters, and they're all after the same thing, and this is essence. Essence is very important.
Essence is very important. We're going to play that every time we mention Essence because I love that clip. What you say, Kevin, is so true with this essence, this idealism, this vision of the Zerg, and how they use that and incorporate that into the swarm. And this goes back to the Xel'Naga. There's two different purities that they want to combine into one race, and that's what Samir Duran is trying to do with the hybrids. You have the purity of form, which is the Protoss, and the purity of essence, which is the Zerg. So that is a buzzword, if you will, throughout the entire campaign. But really to delve into the history of the Zerg and how they work and how they strip those different elements and parts of different races to incorporate that into the swarm itself through one of the missions where you needed to overcome the freezing fields, those ice blasts, and
right.
how you were able to adapt that way, I thought was pretty neat. And it gave a very, very solid understanding of how the swarm evolved. Now
I do want to mention before we move on, Clutch, as far as essence goes, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, I just didn't want to touch on it too early. All of the Zerg were trying to contain or get this essence. So the primal Zerg as well. This was not something that the Xel'Naga introduced to the Zerg. It had nothing to do with the Xel'Naga. Perhaps the Xel'Naga saw the Zerg as purity of essence. Maybe, they were already this purity of essence before the Xel'Naga even came. So again, this is what I'm talking about. The primal Zerg were searching for essence, Dahaka, and the normal Overmind Zerg were also searching for essence because, again, Abathur was a creation of the Overmind. So this definitely runs fluid throughout all of the Zerg, not just the Xel'Naga Zerg.
Mm-hmm.
Important to mention.
It is, but I wish that we had a golden age to go back to see what the Xel'Naga were like and where everything went wrong. We will talk about that later, though. Let's talk about Warfield and the missions on Char. This was such a juxtaposition that Kerrigan was in. She wanted to recover what was left of her swarm on Char. The Dominion had a very strong foothold, which, by the way, introducing choice once again. If you attacked the Nida swarms in Wings of Liberty, the Terran force on Char had a much more robust ground forces. If you attacked the air platforms in Wings of Liberty, then the Terran Dominion had a much more robust air superiority in that game. So those choices actually mattered in Heart of the Swarm. I found was very, very fascinating. But you have that moving into Heart of the Swarm, Warfield's really stubborn in this sense because Sarah's telling him, leave this planet, stay out of my way, and your men won't get killed. And Warfield's telling her, listen, little girl, we're staying here because we claim this for the Dominion. Warfield is doing his job as a general in the army. What is very, very unfortunate, however, is that Warfield was one of Kerrigan's biggest allies when she was when she was not the Queen of Blades, but when they were trying to save Sarah Kerrigan. Kerrigan, in a way, kind of betrays Warfield. Warfield is telling her as you go further into the mission, "We saved you, girl. We saved you." And that
what do we call that, Lauren? A traitor?
A traitor.
Judas.
A Judas.
Judas.
A bit, yes. Sarah, to her credit, may not have realized the amount of lives that were lost to maybe save her, but with her intelligence, I think she did. However, Jim is gone, and Arcturus Manx has to go down. Nobody's going to stand in her way to enact that vengeance. Warfield knows that by now, especially in his dying his dying moments. And he pleads for Sarah to spare his men. He says, these men do not threaten you. Let them go. And he mentions Raynor when it seems she's not going to budge. And he says, what if Raynor can see you now? Hits a chord in Sarah, and she drives those I-beams that were in his chest. He's probably going to die anyways, but pretty much confirms his death. Maybe puts him out of his misery. But Kerrigan does something that's beautiful, I think, and shows that this is not the same Queen of Blades as before. She shows compassion, and she spares the men, and you don't see it, you hear it through the radio comms saying that it's a miracle, the swarm are, they're retreating, they're letting us leave. And to me, I submit, in my opinion, that this compassion actually makes Sarah stronger than being a ruthless, evil, destroy everything, Queen of Blades. As she,
she's able to think about things rather than just acting without considering. Aside from that, I really feel like this cinematic, this even a very brief moment like this was huge. It really showed the personalities of both of those characters. Warfield being, the thick-headed army brat become general that he is, he strikes a chord with Kerrigan just before he may or may not die. Who knows, maybe they could have saved him. Obviously not anymore. And Kerrigan, again, showing some compassion, showing that human side, but also killing Warfield anyway. So she's still somebody you don't want to mess with, but she still thinks things through. I mean, who knows? Maybe these forces wouldn't have been available to us later on in the game when we partnered with Valerian.
Yeah, I don't think Warfield's coming back. I don't think he's going to get infected and come back.
Infested Warfield?
I think he is dead. He did have a really cool robotic shooting arm. I thought that was really neat. But
oh, yeah.
It also brings up that that rift that's within Sarah, too. She is so bent on getting this vengeance against Meg. She was so bent on it before Jim died that there's still a piece of her, though, that realizes there are innocents and they need to be protected. And that'll be further highlighted a little bit later in the show. But now we need to move on and talk about one of my favorite points in the game, and that is this struggle between power and wisdom. The power that Sarah Kerrigan has and the wisdom that Zeratul has. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
Zeratul.
Birthplace of the Zerg. Here the Zerg evolved, and here the Dark One altered them. Those left behind are the primal Zerg. They fight. They kill. They evolve. Just as you must, if you survive.
Yeah! What'd you think about that, Lauren?
Oh my gosh. Mind blown. That is the first time that I've ever seen that clip, and the whole time I was like, what in the world? So you know when you have a really bad argument with somebody, and then you don't squash it, and then you see them later on, and they just start yelling at you for like no reason. You're like, whoa, I just wanted to apologize. There was like a little bit of Street Fighter going on there. I wish there was a Kerrigan Zeratul Street Fighter match where you could like play either one of the characters and have a fight.
That would be badass.
Really going way off subject right now. Sorry. But that's insane. I want them to keep fighting, but I know they have to stop.
They have to stop, but you got to see the amount of power that Sarah had.
Oh my gosh! Like
Zeratul, no, I'm not messing around.
She flew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
Like
you
all the way across the thing.
go ahead, Kevin?
When I saw that playing through the campaign for the first time after, I don't know, I think I slept 2 hours after the Swarm launch. Seeing that, I think I immediately tweeted, "Holy crap, things got interesting!" And that was like one of the huge like points of the campaign for me. As obviously, aside from the whole kiss at the beginning of the game, that was like one of the big nerd show moments. There's a couple more coming, but that was one of the big ones.
Well, this was another element that was needed in the cinematics too, because of course in the game she's very powerful and she does amazing things in the game.
Yeah.
But to see that in a cinematic and wow, this is why everyone around here was so scared of her and trying to figure out what she could actually do. Because if you see a friend of yours that's able to do that, you don't want to make them angry at all. However, what I loved about the difference between her and Zeratul is with her fighting style, she was like, what? Going nuts everywhere.
She's like ninja out in this thing.
And Zeratul's like, all right, let it out of your system
like,
for a bit.
Ow,
Yeah.
Right,
like a hand to the
exactly.
face.
But they had fought in the past and letting out of the system. Kevin, we talked about this before, but go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. That was exactly what it was. He knew Kerrigan was angry. She thinks Jim Raynor's dead. She thinks he's dead. So Jim Raynor's dead for all intents and purposes right now. So yeah, he just kind of let her get it out of his system. He'd fight back until all of a sudden he just kind of puts his hand to her face and says, "Believe," like in his deep Zeratul voice. Honestly, nerd chills. Every time I see that, I get them. It's intense. Intense.
It is completely impactful, and this is as powerful as Kerrigan is. This is a huge attribute to Zeratul with the amount of patience he has. He's been alive for a long time.
Seriously, that man has so many, like a plethora of patience. I wish I could just go up to people and just like put my hand on their face and be like, believe.
I get it.
I know, right? Wouldn't that be like a moment that's just so enlightening? I love Zeratul.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing.
He really knows how to land a moment. That's
he
what I'm
does.
gonna say.
He
Right?
does. Just believe.
God.
All right, listen, teenagers, stop. I'm here to give you a message. I'm not here to kill you.
Exactly.
Which that's how he views humans, like these teenagers and their hormones.
He's like, oh, Kerrigan, stop.
He's like a couple hundred years old, so that's perfect.
A couple hundred. I thought he was a couple thousand. He's up
That
there.
too.
He's up there.
Oh,
All right.
I'm thinking of Deckard Cain.
You're thinking of
sorry.
Cain. Cain's a couple hundred.
Don't want to talk about that.
Don't want to get into the butterflies. All right, my friend. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. This has been a blast so far. There's so much more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Chris Siggety. I'm production director on the StarCraft 2 team, and you're watching The Pulse.